Hi everyone, let's start with the next part of chapter number 3 that is called as automate environment and test of controls. We'll do these two parts here and we'll ensure that this part is done in a proper manner. Let's see this. First is what is an automate environment? Automate environment basically refers to a business environment where the processes, operations, decision making and accounting is carried out by the help of computer systems. Computer systems are also known as IT, that is information technology, or IS, or that is information systems. Okay. Next is what are the key features of an automated environment? Very, very simple answer. It has a long code, but the code is very, very easy to remember. So it is Falib is less prone to human errors as he gets latest information using connectivity. Let's go for it again. Falib is less prone to human errors as he gets latest information using what connectivity. Okay, so now how does that work? You must should know it. That is, F is using computers. What are the key features of automated environment? Basically means what are the key, important features of computer. Computers are faster, more accurate, large volume of transaction can be processed in an easier manner. Integration between business operations can easily be done. Your purchase, production, storage, marketing and sales, customer relationship, or recovering the money from the customer. All these things can be done easily with the help of computers. Okay, the data can at least be assimilated easily. Next is better security and controls are available in the automated environment. Then less prone to human errors is the entire point. Then latest information you can get in today's times, but for that you need to have connectivity and networking capability. That is nothing but your use of internet should be there. Okay. Let's go further. Let's see this. That is understanding and documenting the automated environment. This we had seen in part one also. In that we had done something called as 3 plus 3 plus 3, if you remember. In this answer is there. So let's go for it. First is information system purpose, version. Then you have location, architecture, interface, in-house versus package, outsource, key persons, CIO, CISO. Okay, that is Chief Information Officer, Chief Information Security Officer. Okay. Let's go further. Next area is in relation to the various IT risks that can be there. Very simple. Let's go in R flow. First is there can be loss of data, unauthorized access to the data, direct changes to the backend data or the data in the master file, unauthorized changes to the systems and programs, inaccurate data, inaccurate processing of data. Then you have the authorized person finding it difficult or failing to make the changes in the system or programs. Next point is lack of segregation of duties. And finally, excess access or privileged access, that is called IT person gaining access. These were the points that you have in your IT risk answer. If you remove your notes, you will be able to see that numbering which is there properly, and you can easily get the flow in one go. Okay, simple answer, very nice answer, highly scoring answer. If this question comes, you should get full marks in this. Okay, very, very comfortable answer. Let's go further. Now that is basically this area. So I had taught you before, this was for the teaching part, but I had taken you to this answer then. Impact of IT related risk. What are the various impact? There can be impact on the controls, there can be impact on the substantive checking, and there can be impact on the reporting. Okay. Now impact on controls is what if there are risk, IT risk is there in a system and you're taking the data from that system. So you will not be able to rely on the controls. So first is there is non-reliance on your automated controls, calculations, accounting procedures. You are not able to rely on it because the system has a lot of issues. The system has IT risk. It is virus infected, or some person has manipulated the data. Now if that is the case, then you will not be able to trust the controls. Okay, and therefore it may lead to additional audit work because you will understand your substantive procedures will increase because the controls are not that good. So I told you many times in the class, if the controls are weak, then your substantive procedures will increase in order to reach the RA level. Next is substantive checking. Let's do this. That is non-reliance of data obtained from the systems. In such a case, all information, data, reports would have to be tested thoroughly for their completeness and accuracy. And hence this increases the substantive checking work that is called detailed checking will increase. So when the line goes up, you have to do more work to get the evidence. So that is your detailed checking will have to be done so that you are able to gather more information. Let's go to the go to the next part. Impact on reporting. Now, whenever the data is not proper and IT-related risks are there, the more chances of misstatements increases. So, chance of misstatements, will increase to multiple levels, and that is why they have said the auditor will give a modification. Will be there in the auditor's report. There will be auditor will give a modified opinion. So, modification of auditor's report will happen in some instances. That is where the misstatements are material in nature. Okay, that is the impact of IT-related risk. Let's go to the next area. That is, we are now doing this three types of controls in an automated environment. That is basically this. That is general IT controls, application controls, and IT dependent manual controls. Okay, general IT controls I told in the class are pervasive in nature. They spread across the organization, right from the lowest level person till the highest level person has to follow the general IT controls. Okay, these are also called as indirect control. Remember these for MCQs. Application controls are nothing but automated controls. They mainly deal with input, process, and output. Okay. What are IT dependent manual controls? When the controls are done by humans only, but with the support of computers. Okay, that is called IT dependent manual controls. In this, I had given you the example of the bank account freezing example. I told you that during COVID time, I was not using a specific bank account, and the bank froze that account because it was not getting used. So I had to go to the bank and fill the KYC form to ensure that the bank account is unfrozen, correct? So that example when I give you in the class, that is nothing but your IT dependent manual controls. Simple. Let's go further. Now here they are given the in relation to, I'll take you to the main answer, that is basically this. Now in this we had done, sir, the activities that are there in general IT control. So in general IT control, what all activities are there in place? So in general IT control, the first activity that in my flow was your acquisition, development and maintenance. That is number one. The second activity we did was this area that is called data center and networking. The third activity we did was access security, and the fourth one was program change. Okay. So let's do this one by one. Acquisition, development, and maintenance. I told you that, sir, whenever we are acquiring any system, we have to ensure that for overall management there is a person. Sir, project initiation is done by the IT expert, and he will do the analysis and he will give the design of the system that he wants to create. After you give the approval, he will go and construct the software, and finally the software will be there in place, and we have to do the testing and the quality assurance work. Okay, and we have to ensure that the testing and quality assurance is done, so that only after that the software can be implemented. Next is whenever new software is there in place, data center, whether data is stored, and networking, that is how the data is communicated, this should be there in place. Again, for that, we'll have a person who will handle the overall management. Data will be processed in batches. We should take the required backup because data can be lost also, so we should have the backup. Next is we should check the performance monitoring on regular basis, and performance monitoring, if we come to know that if the performance is weak, then and if there is a chance of data getting lost, we should see whether recovery procedures are there in place in terms of BCP, DRP. BC is business continuity planning, DRP disaster recovery planning. Okay. Next is access security. Access security means what? Which data who can access. Now for that there should be a policy in place. We should implement that policy on ground, that is called as organization and management. Finally, we have something called as PONDA. What is PONDA? Very simple. Physical security, operating system security, network security, data security, and application security. So this is what we had seen. Okay. Last but not the least, program change is nothing but if change is to be made in an already coded program, it is called a program change. Basically, if the software is already running, but if you need to update the software, that is called program change. Now, program change, we had done the mobile app story, if you remember. And mobile app story, you have to remember like this, that first of all, you need someone to take up the charge and ensure that the changes are done. Okay, that is called change management process. Then after that, that person should request the change from the customers. Customers, when they say that these are the changes that they require, after that we should get the changes made. So that is called requesting the changes and then making the changes. After the changes are made, you should ensure that the testing is done properly, and only after that you will, um, make it live. Make it live means ensure that everybody is using that updated application. Okay, that is in relation to your program change area. So these are the four areas in relation to general IT controls. Anything can come in the examination. Okay, so this first point is here, second point is here, third point is here, fourth point there. You should ensure that this is done properly. Now in this, I just want to show you all something, and that is this objective is also very, very important in the exam. No, they can give this sentence and tell this objective is for which general IT controls. And you should understand, read, and take the example that I had given in the class. And remember, whether it is your data center and network operation, whether it is program change, whether it is access security, whether it is application system development and maintenance, which of the parts is coming here? That is what you should check. Okay. Let's go further. Let's go to the next area. That is in relation to, let's see this. Okay. Now, testing methods in automated environment, very, very simple. That is, reperformance is the most effective type of testing. You and I both know. However, reperformance is very, very time consuming and it is not efficient. Because of that, the most efficient method of testing in today's times is inquiry and inspection. However, when you are using IT, the more common methods are, first is walkthrough, checking a transaction from one end to the other end. Next is different scenarios. You create different situations so that you are able to function, check the functioning of the application at different levels, or at different accessing ability. Basically, how much it can process at once. You're checking that. That's got different scenarios. And finally, you are checking the configuring. Configuring is basically the programming part of it. So you're checking the codes and checking whether the application is working properly or not. Okay. Next, after that, we have done the next area, that is in relation to, if you see this part, manual elements versus automated elements in entities internal control. In which cases are manual better, in which cases automated is better. In that we had done this. Okay. If the transaction is having more recurring transaction is there, then you will understand that application, your computerized controls or automated controls are better. But if it is non-recurring in nature, you will understand that in that case, manual controls are better. If errors are very difficult to define, anticipate, or predict, then manual is better. But if the errors are, see, errors can easily be anticipated or predicted, then manual system is, not that good. Then automated controls can give you better result. Now after that, you have, if changing circumstances keeps on happening at a continuous basis, then manual controls are better. But if you understand that if there are any only specific ways of doing the things, then in that case, automated controls are better. Finally, in monitoring the effectiveness of automated controls, manual controls are very, very important. Machine cannot by itself start running. You have to ensure that you are giving the proper instructions to the system. Okay, that is why they have given the last point here. Okay, mark this as important. Very, very nice area. Let's go to the next area, that is this audit approach in an automated environment. We have done this using this chart here, and we'll use this only. Very, very simple. First is, so the auditor will keep in mind the accounting plus disclosures which are there in place. Auditor will keep in mind the risk, that is quantitative plus the qualitative risk that is there. Auditor will keep in mind the assertions. Assertion means what is it affecting? Is it affecting the transaction, account, and disclosures? In that also what assertion it is affecting. In transaction, you know very well, occurrence, completeness, cut off, classification, accuracy, like that. What assertion it is affecting. Next is you will look at the source of misstatement, and finally you will see whether the risk is coming from IT system or not. That is called IT system risk. Okay, this is called risk assessment. This is basically this point. See, risk assessment is basically this point. Just a second. This point. Okay. Let's go further. Now we are doing understand and evaluate. Let's see that understand and evaluating is this. So you will understand the business process. You will look at the risk and control matrices. Because you're checking controls, you should check the design of controls also, and you should check whether controls are applied to the entire entity. That is, whether it is spread across. Finally, you will check the IT general control or general IT controls, and you will check the application controls also. Okay, that completes the second one. If you can see here, that is understand and evaluate. This one. Next is test for operating effectiveness. Let's do this area. Now in this you will look at you will do the control testing, you will look at the source data because that is very, very important to check. You will check the various reports that the organization is generating. You will of course do the testing on sample basis only because it is not possible to check all transactions. And finally you will check this control is coming from your, whether the people who are setting the controls, whether they are competent and independent or not. That is what you're checking in this case. Next, last point is in relation to reporting. So in that you will check. So I'll just show you this area so that you know, don't get confused. Reporting this part. So let's see this reporting part. You will check the deficiencies. You'll check the significant deficiencies. You will see any remediation is taken by the management or not. You will look at the internal controls memo and the management letter. And finally, you will, if required, you will give your opinion in the auditor's report. That is how the flow goes. Okay. Let's go to the next area. Let's see this. Now, what are the data analytics for audit can be used for which purposes? So basically, to checking the completeness of the population in relation to checking the samples, it becomes very, very important. For reperforming calculations, it is a very, very important matter again. For recomputing the balances at the after the ledger is made, and when you're doing the when you find the balance of the ledger at the end of the year, to recompute the balances to see whether the balances are computed properly or not. That is what you're checking in this case. Next is you will check the journal entries because they are the heart of any transaction, any core of any accounting entry. You will see whether any fraud investigation is required or not, or in that case you can use data analytics. And finally, you will, if some issue is there in the organization, then you will see which controls are bad. That is, you will check the control deficiencies. That is basically this part here. Okay, that data analytics for audit. Let's go further. Digital audit, this I asked you all to read. It can come as a short note in the examination. Very, very simple answer. You can go through it. After that, we had done internal financial control as per the regulatory requirements. In that, again, we did something called as FOLA fraud, if you remember. So FOLA fraud flows in this manner. Let's do it. First is financial reporting, reliability, operations, effectiveness, and efficiency, laws and regulations compliance or legal compliance, asset safeguarding, and finally you have frauds, prevention and detection. Okay, so if internal financial controls are there in place, even as per law, if it is there in place, it's a good thing because all these things can be taken care of. Okay, let's go further. Let's go further. Next, we had assess and report audit findings. So auditor will report what matters in his audit report. Again, a read answer only, but I'll just read it through here so that it doesn't get missed. Auditor will check whether any weakness in the internal IT controls are there or not. Auditor will check the impact of this weakness. So very, very simple point. First is weakness, second is impact of the weakness. Auditor will check the report, auditor report deficiencies to the management, that is the internal control memo or the management letter the auditor can go through carefully. Auditor can then communicate in writing any significant deficiencies to TCWG if it is required to be reported to that higher level of management or not. So those charge of governance, as I told you, those who sit above the management will communicate to them in writing if the matter is a significant matter. Significant matters. Remember, significant matter. Okay. Let's go further. Now we enter the test of controls area. In that, there are few areas that you have to simply read and understand. And regarding this, we have done a lot of examples. Remember, line comes down, line goes up. We have done many times. Okay. That is auditor responses to assessed risk. That is SA 330. So that is basically SA 330 states that, and then the given year auditor shall design and implement overall responses to address the assessed risk commitment statement at the financial statement level. And auditor will also design and perform the further audit procedures, but this time at the assertion level. Same thing. So at the finance level, at the assertion level, the auditor has to design the responses. Auditor has to design the responses. Okay. That is basically what they have said. Let's go further. Now, in designing the further audit procedure, the auditor has to keep these in mind. What are the chances, likelihood of the material misstatement? Risk assessment takes into account the relevant controls, that is, whether controls are thought about or not, whether there are any errors in the control or not. If the controls are weak, remember the control risk increases. See, control risk will increase in that case. Okay. Now, based on this, the auditor will determine the nature, timing, and extent of his substantive procedures. Last point we have that is called more persuasive audit evidence. The higher the auditor's assessment of the risk will be there. More persuasive audit evidence means the auditor is checking more deeply, or he want more satisfaction from checking or doing the checking work. In that case, you will understand if higher risk is there. In that case, the auditor's persuasive audit evidence that the auditor will be more, because he will need more satisfaction and more what do you call evidence to remain calm. Okay, that is basically this area. Next, let's see this. This is your test of controls area starts now. So we have 1A, 1B, 2 and 3. 1A was in relation to the nature and extent of test of controls. So in that case, we'll first do the inquiry. Let's go for it. We'll first do the inquiry, wait for the management response, and we'll do the other procedures after the management gives the response. Auditor should check the controls, how they are applied, the consistency of the application of the controls, and by whom or by what means the controls are applied in place. This is 1A. 1B is nothing but your extent of test of control depends on which matters or which factors. We have flex row. Flex row very simple. That is frequency, length of time, expected rate of deviation, relevance and reliability of audit evidence, and finally other controls you will check. Okay. Then after that we have 2. 2 is what? Retesting of controls. Retesting of controls. Now retesting of controls normally is done once in every 3 audits, but when should the auditor retest the controls more frequently? In which situations? Where the control environment, the risk assessment and monitoring of controls are not that effective. So if there is any change in the effectiveness of control environment, risk assessment and monitoring of controls, the auditor will prefer retesting the control. Whenever there is a change in the characteristics of control from manual to automated, automated to manual, the auditor will prefer retesting the controls. Whenever general IT controls are there in place, or if there is any changes in that, the auditor will ensure that he is retesting the controls. Whenever there is a change in the application of controls, the one person leaves the organization, the other person joins the organization. That is called change in the application of controls because of changes in personnel. That is what the auditor will, then the auditor will retest the controls and not wait for 3 years to get over. So auditor will retest the controls earlier. Next is risk of material misstatement in the previous year. If it is very, very high, then the auditor will prefer retesting the control before the next year's audit starts. And finally, that is COVID-19 example we have done in the class, that is lack of change to change in circumstances. So if the organization shows lack of change to change in circumstances, in that case the auditor will check less. Okay, so in that case it is a bad thing, because see, if the auditor, I think I misquoted that matter, I'll just repeat again. If there is a change in the environment, and because of that, if the organization has not shown flexibility and the organization has not changed, then that itself is a risk. And when that becomes a risk, then in that case, the auditor will be more worried. Okay, then the controls will be checked by the auditor in much more depth. However, if there is a change in the circumstances, and because of that, the organization also shows the required changes and shows flexibility, That will calm the auditor, and the auditor will say, okay, it's a good thing that the organization did. Uh, because sometimes if COVID-19 is there, don't you think the organization's policy and procedures may change or the method of working will change? The answer is yes. The auditor will retest the controls in case there is a lack of change in circumstances, because major things have got changed in the organization. Okay. Let's go to the last one, that is specific inquiries on which matter. If there's a deviation in the controls, then auditor cannot rely on the controls, and the auditor will have to forcefully do additional test of control. Remember the access card reader and the timesheet example is exactly what I'm trying to tell you. So you will, if the access card reader machine is not working properly, you rely on the timesheet. And finally, the auditor will, if the auditor does additional test of controls, in that case, if he reaches the R level, or sorry, if he reaches desired level of confidence, or he gets the required evidence from the controls, he'll be satisfied. If he still doesn't get it, then the auditor will come to know that, see, I checked the controls, I did not get any satisfaction. I did additional test of control, I still don't get any satisfaction. In that case, the auditor will know that his substantive procedures is going to increase, because there is going to be a potential risk. Simple. So if additional test of controls are not working properly, auditor will know that there is a potential risk. Okay. That completes this area. Okay, that's it. You can go through this area, chapter number 3, in my opinion, very important chapter, very important one. Ensure that you're doing it properly. I wish you all the best. Study well. Take care. See you. Bye bye.